So far away, Lucas, and audience at home, welcome once again to the Wiki Weekdays podcast, the podcast where myself, Karl Smallwood, and my co-host, who is off camera and off screen for me, Lucas Holland. Say hello, Lucas.
Hello. People watching very much know that I am on screen, though.
We're off my screen, and you had a whole spiel, and this is the podcast where we scour the lengths and breadths of the internet to find wikis on things that we personally find interesting, to delve into them and see if there's anything more we can learn about said subject. And I believe this week you are going first, my friend, and what have you brought for us to discuss? Because I can see you giggling, and I can see kind of a little reflection in your glasses of the screen, but it's not giving much away. So what are we talking about?
It's not giving too much away, but I'm going a bit different this week.
Okay, different's good.
We are going to be talking about the Spice Girls.
Okay, so I am all down for talking about the Spice Girls, because I think we don't really have boy bands and girl groups anymore, do we?
I think K-pop has taken over that.
K-pop has taken over. Like BTS is probably the closest we'd get to like the kind of culture that surrounds or surrounded like girl groups and guy groups. Like maybe I think One Direction might be the last big one that I can think of as like a Western-centric boy group.
Maybe, yeah.
I can't think of any group after One Direction who had the same sort of like cultural cachet that they did. And people don't know that Spice Girls were huge, especially in the UK. They had like a movie.
Yeah.
Like every single member was like so famous. Like they started the trend of just dating footballers being a rite of passage for every like celebrity.
I mean, I don't remember too much, which is why, we have the wiki here to help us.
Of course, yes. But you must remember Spice Fever, right? Everyone was all Spice Girl
I remember
Fever.
Spice Fever. I was talking about like the specifically dating footballers part. I just assumed it was specifically like the Victoria Beckham of it all.
Oh yeah, but that started like the idea of like, the celebrity power couple here in the UK.
Of course, yeah, but like I was going to say that I didn't know whether the other four Spices, the Spices, I don't know whether they like all dated footballers or not. And I think like, is it like Jerry Halliwell's married to like an F1 driver? I think
something like that. Yeah, but go. Speaking of which, then before we get into it, who was your favourite Spice Girl? Which you obviously mean. Which one did you have a crush on when you were a kid?
The one I had a crush on as a kid was Baby Spice.
Me was Jerry Halliwell. That dress, that iconic
Ginger Spice.
Yeah, the iconic Union Jack dress.
That was the one I think they wore in the movie, right?
Yeah, and the big bouffant red hair.
Yeah,
just absolutely iconic image of Britpop.
It's very funny because like clearly my tastes have changed because like as I grew a bit older, I was like, I definitely should have said Sporty Spice. Like Sporty Spice, just like, you know what? Down to earth Scouse woman that's like, yeah, let's go.
That's always the funny thing about the Spice Girls, isn't it? Like it's like the Ninja Turtles theorem. Are you familiar with the Ninja Turtles theorem at all? Because the Spice Girls adhere to it.
I'm not aware of the theorem, but if you're going to tell me that I've not always been a Donatello main, I'll come after you, Karl.
The Ninja Turtles theorem posits that when you have a group of something that's supposed to appeal to younger people, each member of that group, even if they look to an outside, to a layman who's not familiar with the group, to be identical, they have key distinct personalities that are very easily relatable that children can glob onto. So Ninja Turtles, like Donatello is the smart one, Michelangelo is the cool one, Leonardo is the leader, the cool level-headed one, and Raphael is the hothead. The Spice Girls, even more simple than that. Just Sporty Spice, like sports. Baby Spice, cute things. Ginger Spice, is ginger, I suppose.
Yeah, like that is what we get as a personality trait is her colour.
Posh Spice is posh, and then Scary Spice is just the one who's a bit wacky, a bit crazy.
And there's always that like with the Scary Spice thing. It's like
in the fact, the one black Spice Girl is the scary one.
It's like, it's not a good look. But
did she ever get out from under Bo Selector?
I mean, I presume so, because like
do you know what I mean? Like the impression they did of her on Bo Selector.
No, I'm not very aware. Then no.
Okay, so on Bo Selector, Avid Merriam, was it, who did that? He did like the famous, infamous impression of Scary Spice Mel B as like just the chain-smoking lager lout.
Oh.
And I think they did have like an appearance together on a show, and she brought it up and had been like, it took me years to, like, do you remember like Craig David used to get it as well? Like, Craig David, like, they just said, oh, Craig David's a Yorkshireman with a pet kestrel who feeds it fruit pastels. And that, it's such a bizarre thing. And it took him years to get away from that.
Yeah. And I know Mel B's been like a judge or presenter or stuff on like a lot of shows. So it's kind of seen that transition go relatively well, I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't really know that you can like say it for all of them, but obviously like Victoria Beckham's off just being a billionaire, and Jerry Halliwell, like, you see quite a lot in the public eye still.
Yeah,
but I can't really say that you see maybe the other two quite as much, but they're still
the
obviously
Spice
around.
Girls. Yeah, the thing is though, do they even need to be? The amount of money they must just get from like residuals on Spice Girls shit.
You would hope, right?
You'd hope anyway. Yeah. So yeah, talk about Spice Girls.
But yeah, Spice Girls are an English pop girl group formed in 1994. The group comprised of Melanie Brown, Scary Spice, Melanie Chisholm, Sporty Spice, so that was Mel B and Mel C respectively.
Yep.
Emma Bunton, Baby Spice, Jerry Halliwell, Ginger Spice, and Victoria Beckham, Posh Spice.
Just a stroke of marketing, Jesus. And not Jesus. As I say, like, and when you look at it nowadays, you don't really get the like the Ninja Turtles theorem. Like you look at One Direction, and they all wanted to be the cool one. You can tell they all wanted to be the cool. None of them wanted to be the fucking loser.
Obviously,
like, you need that.
The fans are all like, "Oh well, I like Harry or Niall or whatever," but I would not be able to identify something about 5 of those men, like, as an outsider. But for Spice Girls, you just very knew distinct. It was a scary, sporty, baby, ginger, posh.
It's very, very... And that's the thing. Like,
the 5 spices that you use in cooking, right?
It's like when I say of like Little Mix is the example I use of. Like, clearly they didn't want to have any sort of distinct personality. They all try to be the same person, which just results in them not having a distinct personality of their own. And you only think of Little Mix as Little Mix. You don't think of them as individuals.
Mm-hmm. And it's... I can't remember Victoria Beckham's original name, but yeah, Victoria Beckham, like, famously, you know, ended up with David Beckham later on. She wasn't married to him at the time of like forming the group, but they did become like a massive UK power couple.
They did indeed, yes. And we have to bring up the legendary interview they had with Sacha Baron Cohen in character as Ali G, where like David and Victoria Beckham, to their credit, they take it. They take the barbs, and you have the legendary line of when Brooklyn was just born their son. It's like, so, do you think your son's going to grow up and want to be a footballer like his dad, or a singer like Beyonce? You just see Victoria Beckham's face drop of like, ooh.
You know, it is oddly funny that you mentioned Beyonce, right? Because kind of the reason why I looked up the Spice Girls was to call out, like, you know, a YouTuber that watches Kind of Funny. I didn't see the context for it, but on Twitter put out a poll of who was bigger, Spice Girls or Destiny's Child.
Oh, fuck off, Destiny's Child. Like,
and that's the thing. Beyonce way bigger than anything we're talking about here.
No, she's not. No, I still think the Spice Girls in their prime. Has Beyonce got a movie?
She doesn't, but I'm sure Beyonce has like 10 times the amount of albums sold.
Probably. Actually, let's double check that. Yeah, while you go through it, I'll double check that. I can do some fact-checking. Tell me about this story then.
I understand from like an American perspective that Destiny's Child was probably a big movement over there. Mm-hmm. But like Spice Girls, I should say, they had a movie. They were international superstars. Whereas
Beyonce has sold more albums, 200 million to Spice Girls, 105 million.
And I believe like when I looked it up, Destiny's Child was about 60 million. So that's the thing, is like Destiny's Child huge in America. Spice Girls huge in like all around the world. Okay,
let's discount Beyonce then, because then we'd have to say, like, you know, maybe if you added up the 5 solo careers of the Spice Girls, they might have sold like 10, 20 million each as well.
Like that's the thing is, Solo careers, we're not talking about here, just the groups to groups.
As a group, yeah. Like, fuck off as if any girl group was bigger than the Spice Girls.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like, were any of them? Because Spice Girls, Spice World happened. They met aliens, Karl.
Yeah, that's it. They had their own movie. It's like, I don't think there was any... I don't think there will ever be any girl group as big as or as influential as they were. Because do you remember, like, the slew of girl groups that came in the wake of Spice Girls, trying to, like, you know, just hoover crumbs off their plate? They had, like, Atomic Kitten and all that stuff.
Just reading a little bit ahead here, because it said, like, they debuted with Wannabe in 1996, a number one hit in 37 countries. And then it later says, like, the Spice Girls have sold 100 million records worldwide, making them the best-selling female group of all time, one of the best-selling pop groups of all time, and the biggest British pop success since the Beatles.
Beatles, yeah. Because I was going to say, the only thing that's even in comparison to, like, the cultural impact would be the Beatles.
I mean, the Beatles, obviously, way bigger. We're not arguing that.
Like, Joey, you're talking about, like, you know, people just being wrong on a podcast. There was that amazing one of, like, that new rapper Ice Spice. He's doing really well. And they said, like, she got, like, more streams in a month than the Beatles did. Then, is she bigger than the Beatles? And I think just the way some of it is, well, let's like, you know, she's clearly very talented, got a big audience. Let's wait 50 years and see if people still fucking talk about Ice Spice. Because the Beatles getting almost as many streams as the current biggest artist when that article was published at that moment is impressive. Like, half a century later, they're still as culturally relevant, getting as much, like, airtime as the biggest artist in the world at that point, who's getting, like, a push from every conceivable angle. It's like, I'm not taking anything away from it, but, like, the fact people say, is she bigger than the Beatles? Like, we'll give her 50 years and then we'll see.
Is she bigger than the Beatles 50 years after the Beatles were relevant? Well, not relevant, but, like, you know, producing content.
So I'm getting more views than the Beatles do 50 years after, like, they stopped being a band. It's like, that's not... Like, if anything, it just makes them sound even worse.
It just makes the Beatles sound even more impressive, if anything. So
what was, like, the thoughts? Did they legit try and claim that
So
Destiny's Child
all I
is bigger?
saw was that there must have been a debate of, like, which one is bigger. And they put out, like, a tweet poll of just, like, asking the question. I was like, to someone outside of America, I don't think it is a question.
No.
And I get that maybe the Spice Girls, like, weren't quite as big over there, but Destiny's Child were massive. And then people obviously conflate Beyonce with Destiny's Child, and are therefore thinking, like, oh, you know, this is massive. But Destiny's Child themselves just kicked Beyonce off, and then Beyonce became way bigger than Destiny's Child, obviously.
Yeah. And
it's like, if we're talking just girl group to girl group 1v1, like, A, the Spice Girls win the argument, B, they've got two more people so they can win that fight.
I was going to say, I think just like Mel B and Jerry Halliwell with backup from Posh Spice could probably take the Destiny's Child.
Do you mean Mel C? Because Mel C's a Scouser, Karl.
Oh, to be fair, yeah, okay, so we get the Scout, we get Mel B and Mel C with a backup from Jerry Halliwell. I think those three could take Destiny's Child in a fist fight.
It's like, oh God. Just, you know, if living in Liverpool for nearly half my life has, like, taught me anything, it's just, you don't want to start a fight with a Scouser.
Yeah, I also, as well, just for fun, I brought up just an article, a Wikipedia article on British pop girl groups. Okay. I was going to name a couple, and we're just going to see if we remember any of them. So,
are we bringing out, like, Aqua?
Aqua's not British, they're Scandinavian, I think.
British girl groups.
Yeah, specifically, you know, the ones that came in the wake of the Spice Girls. So we have... do you remember the Poppy Girls?
The Poppy Girls? No.
Yeah, the Harmonies?
No.
The V-Birds? Electro-Vamp? Entice? The one that I mentioned here that I do think, the Cheeky Girls. They were quite big for a little bit.
They had that one-hit wonder and have been coasting off that in, like, nightclubs ever since.
They have indeed, yes. All Saints.
Oh, yeah. Remember All Saints?
Atomic Kitten.
Yeah, like...
Girls Aloud. The Saturdays. Sugar Babes. And Joe, the Sugar Babes are one of my favourite examples because they are a living example of the ship of Theseus paradox, which people probably know from like WandaVision. Of if you take a ship and you replace all the boards on the ship, and then is that still the original ship? Well, then if you took those original boards and built a new ship, which is the original, the sugar babes have undergone so many lineup changes that there are no original members of the sugar babes left. And in fact, all the original members formed a new group, but they legally couldn't call themselves the sugar babes. It's like, but that's the sugar babes.
And it just depressed me a little bit that you are correct in saying that most people probably recognise that, like, the
From
ship of
WandaVision.
Theseus from WandaVision. And it was a good thing to include in that, but it just depresses me a little bit. But yeah, the fact that they had to form a new group not called the Sugar Babes, even though they are the Sugar Babes.
Can you imagine how if in that show, like, Ship of Vision's like, are you familiar with the Sugar Babes paradox? It's like, naturally. I just wanted to mention a couple of them because just there were so many, and they were all bad.
I love this as well.
Okay.
Measures of their success include international record sales, a 2007 to 8 reunion tour, a 2019 reunion tour, merchandising, iconic symbolism such as Halliwell's Union Jack dress representing girl power, and a film.
Like, that dress is like held up as like one of the quintessential symbols of like Brit culture.
Yeah, again, you know, you go back to like a saying of like the ship that launched the woman that launched 1,000 ships. Like that dress was just
that awakened
so
a lot in a lot of people.
It did.
Like, she did probably more for redheads than anyone had done to like that point in history.
Yeah, it's one of those things of I had two defenses when I was younger for like ginger people, not, you know, me not getting bullied for being ginger, essentially. Is like, but Ginger Spice, all but Prince Harry.
Yeah.
And that was all I had. It was just, please.
I remember when you were talking about the reunion tour. I remember that reunion tour, the one holdout, because I think every single one wanted to do it, but not Posh.
Of course, because Victoria Beckham's just sitting on like millions or billions of pounds, like doesn't give a shit.
It's like, yeah, she owns like her own like fashion company. And you know what? I give the Spice Girls like props for this they didn't do the reunion tour without her. Because like so many of those bands that are like flat, like remember when like Take That came back and Robbie Williams wasn't part of it?
Yeah, of course.
And they still did it. And it's like, then you're not the same band, are you? You just want the money. So
and it was one of those of Robbie Williams that was the only one that really became successful out of that. So it was Take That without the person that people wanted to see.
Yeah, no, they still had Gary Barlow, and then he quit, and then he had his tax problems, and he came back. Which I think is a lot. You can literally see the point where he had to pay his tax back, and he's rejoined.
Yeah, it says the group became one of the most successful marketing engines ever, earning up to $75 million per year, with their global gross income estimated at 500 to 800 million by May 1998.
That's 1998 money. In fact, that's like easy, like a couple.
What, maybe 100 million each a year by May 1998.
Yeah,
and then they had a couple of years coasting on that because it says here that they were active until 2000. So that's maybe 2-3 years earning like maybe around $100 million a year.
Not to mention endorsement deals and just the fact they live off royalties forever.
Yeah,
like ridiculous. Like, it cannot be. Like, they were so massive. Like, they sold like Wannabe in butcher shops.
Oh wow!
That's how popular that single was.
It says here, Karl.
Yes.
In 1996, Top of the Pops magazine gave each member of the group aliases, which were adopted by the group and media. So the Scary Babe, Ginger Posh and Sporty was actually something that Top of the Pops must have came up with.
That's kind of like awesome. And I hope as well the person on Top of the Pops who came up with that didn't get paid. Because fuck them.
That's the thing. That journalist saw none of that.
Because
came
Victoria
up with like
Beckham,
their ultimate marketing thing. Fuck them.
Because Victoria Beckham has been living with everyone calling her posh for years.
But like, it's hard to argue that when you know you're at the point where you are now. It's like, if anything, she just got posher.
Yeah, I guess. Presumably they all just lent into it.
Yeah, but at the same time, when back in the day, when you say, for example, you see that Ali G interview, it's like it's hard to really argue that her and David Beckham are posh in the traditional sense.
That's what I don't get about it. It's like they were rich, yeah, but David Beckham, he always came across as like such like just a down to earth bloke because he just played football.
Yeah,
he's a bit of a knobhead, but
yeah, but he's not like
paid £100 million a year to kick a ball,
aristocrat or anything.
Yeah.
God.
Yeah, he was born in Manchester.
Yeah.
He was born in fucking he was born in London and grew up in Manchester.
Oh, okay, yeah, because he played for Man U, obviously, like famously, and then moved on.
He's the son of a hairdresser and a kitchen fitter. Okay, there. I just wanted to double check because he might have been like David Beckham, like David. He's some point. No, he was the son of a a kitchen fitter and a hairdresser.
So it says here that with the girl power label, the Spice Girls were popular cultural icons in the 1990s. They are cited as part of the second wave 1990s British invasion of the US.
Well, yeah, because like the Beatles were the first. They called it the British invasion of when American rock and roll was kind of like usurped by the Beatles, and then you had the response to that, which was like funk sort of thing, like your what's his name now? Gonna piss me off. Jimi Hendrix, that sort of thing. They respond like a slightly heavier sound, like a bit more avant-garde. Because you can see influence of the Beatles, like more avant-garde style, but the harder edge that American musicians put on it is a response.
Fair enough, yeah.
It's fascinating to see, and then we had keep in mind that their stuff came back to the UK, and then we responded in turn.
And that's the thing is, nowadays, it's kind of all a bit more amalgamous because just so much of things like, a lot of media is just over on streaming services and stuff.
Yeah.
Like, music, it's not as if you've got physically like ship albums back and forth anymore. It's just, guess what? It's all just on Spotify. And that another one that really surprises me is the fact that it's like the Jonas Brothers' first like massive hit was actually Year 3000, a Busted song.
Yeah.
But because Busted never really made it over to the US at the time, it's associated in the US as a Jonas Brothers song.
Yeah, which must suck to be Busted, because they're still going.
No, Busted are like, we don't give a shit, we earn a lot of money off that.
Oh, okay.
Busted is just like, you know what? We said that they're allowed to do it, and now we keep getting paid. It's like, I can't be mad.
I got a text this morning from a friend of mine. Like, are you busy today? I'm like, unfortunately, I'm working, recording this. Because I'm coming back from Manchester. I've just been to see Busted.
Yeah.
Last night, this morning, the band is still going. And it's the time of my life. I got so drunk and cried.
Yeah, they're enjoying a nice reunion tour themselves, and it's one of those things of, again, like they're just pretty down to earth about the whole thing of just like, yeah,
except for
Jonas Brothers got us a lot of money and people really like the song, so it's like, yeah, why not? And Charlie's still sitting there going, yeah, but fire. What was the band that you fired?
So, okay, I was going to mention, you can't not mention Charlie from Busted. So, just to like anyone who's like wondering who the fuck is Busted were a British boy band, but it was that era of British like boy bands where rock. they played instruments, so they were cool.
So they are kind of, and I say like this in a nice way, they're kind of a precursor to McFly. And
yes,
the drummer from McFly actually drummed for Busted.
For a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, like on a lot of the music videos, you might see an appearance from him and stuff, and it's like...
yeah.
Yeah,
like,
they also toured as Busted.
Think of them as the British answer to, like, shitty pop punk. And when I say shitty pop punk, yeah.
No. To pop punk, Carl. Not shitty.
When I say shitty... I mean, okay, think of it as the British answer to pop punk that's, like, more pop than punk, then.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I meant by a bit shitty. And there's a member of the band, Charlie, who we all know as Eyebrows, because he just has these giant eyebrows. When Charlie the band Simpson, broke up, he started his new band called Fight Star.
That's Fight Star.
And he was insistent that he not be called Charlie from Busted anymore and would walk out of interviews if they talked about Busted. He said, I'm a real musician. That was shit. That was manufactured pop garbage for the masses. I'm a musician. I don't make that anymore. And when Busted reformed to become McBusted, where they just said, fuck it, McFly and Busted are the same band now, he's like, I don't want any part of it. I make real music. Fight Star died on its arse the next year. He's like, well, you know, like, Busted was the best time of my life. And he just admit you wanted the money.
And he had a relatively alright solo career as well.
He did until Fight Star. Until he saw how much money McBusted were making.
That's the rub, isn't it? Of like, you know, he was doing alright with Fight Star and his solo career, and then McBusted have like a sellout UK tour, and he's like,
I'd kind of like to have like $10 million in the bank, please.
And I went to see McBusted live. I'm
they're really good.
Busted and McFly fan, and like McBusted was a really fun show
because they just played the hits from both bands,
and they had an album as well. So they had the hits from the new album, and it was a delightful experience. Yeah, cause
I remember like Charlie being like, well, now I'm part of the band, we can actually start writing new music. And it's like, fuck off. Are you saying you're better than all 5 members? And they're all there like, we're having fun, our fans are loving it, we're here to entertain. And he's like, no, we want to make... It's like, no, just say you want money.
Yeah.
Just say your wife wants a bigger house.
I'd respect it as well.
If you'd have just gone on TV and said, my wife wants a bigger house, I'm joining McBusted, I'd have been all right. But it's the fact that he tried to pretend like he had any sort of artistic integrity left, it's like, no, you don't. And we're okay with that.
We are okay with that. Like, I always respect just like, fuck it, I did it for the money. Yep. Just admit it. But going back to doing it for the money, Karl, we've got a bit of a history on the Spice Girls of just... In the mid-1990s, and I presume it can't have been that mid-1990s, considering like they formed in like 94, but anyway.
Yeah.
In the mid-1990s, father and son management team, Bob and Chris Herbert, together with their financier, Chick Murphy, placed an advertisement in The Stage for auditions for a girl group, which was supposed to respond and compete with the boy bands that dominated the early 1990s.
Yes, because there was a lot of... We've only been talking about girl bands, and like, you know, we mentioned Busted, but there was a lot of boy bands where you had, following the path of Take That, the aforementioned Take That, who were more big in the 80s, and then you had a couple of bands that tried to respond, so they had like E17, who were trying to have like the harder edge, where they were a boy band where they all had shaved heads. They were all chavs, the chav boy band. They were like that great Christmas song.
They were the working class Take That, Karl.
Yeah. Well, they all like knobheads anyway.
But this prompted hundreds of girls to audition, of course, which was whittled down to 5 girls that included Mel B, Victoria Wood / Victoria Adams, Leanne Morgan, Michelle Stevenson, and Jerry Halliwell. And I presume Victoria Wood is the name for now Victoria Beckham.
Yes.
But that still means that Leanne Morgan and Michelle Stevenson, they're not in the Spice Girls, Karl.
They're not. Do you know what they should have done, though? Do you know they had like all those like 500 women like auditioning? Just put them in the band. Are you familiar with like, I think it's like a Korean band called AKB48?
I think I've heard that name somewhere.
And they're called AKB48 because they have 48 members of the band. And here's like a picture of like the last roll call the band had before they broke up.
Well,
it's just like 50 women.
What was that band over in the UK that like prided themselves on having like the massive group, like gang as a group? Do you remember?
I don't know. Let's just have a look for the biggest British. If I put in biggest British band.
I'm sure they'll come up.
Okay, band with most members, British. Yeah. Okay, what did you just say? Like the Beatles, all the clowns.
Because I can't remember what band it was, but I swear there was like at any point it was between like 15 and 50 members.
Is it the Waterboys?
No.
It's the Waterboys. It says they've got like 76
Maybe let us know in the comments if you can remember who I'm thinking of.
Okay.
But it was just a wild time, and it was around the time, you know, like Pop Idol and X Factor and all that were popping off, and I cannot remember at all what it was called.
Okay.
Maybe we can find... No. Anyway, it doesn't matter.
Okay.
So, after the final audition, the girls went home and waited for some days until getting called to attend Nomi's studios again. To their surprise, Leanne Morgan wasn't there, but in her place, it was Melanie Crisol, Mel C, as the new band member. Leanne had been sent a letter telling her she looked too old compared to the other girls.
Oh, can you imagine as well? Getting that letter and then, like, the next year, Spice Girls happens.
Yeah.
And be like, that could have been me. It's like that guy who was in the Beatles, wasn't it? Pete Best, I think it is, and he got kicked out and replaced with Ringo. And then, like, the next year, the Beatles became the Beatles. And he's like, fuck.
It's like one that I know quite well. It's just the story of, like, with the Foo Fighters' first album.
Yeah, it wasn't like some dude who was a drummer and just Dave Grohl.
Dave Grohl apparently, like, behind their back, he wasn't impressed with the drumming on the tracks. Re-recorded the drumming from his own drumming because he's a drummer for Nirvana. And then when they went to go, like, listen to the like masters or whatever, the drummer's like, "That's not my drumming." Dave Grohl's like, "Yeah, it's mine." And then fallout happened, and they ended up quitting. Or maybe getting fired, I'm not sure, but they left the band, and it's like, and then Foo Fighters popped the fuck up.
So I get it, but imagine arguing with the drummer from Nirvana.
Yeah.
Like I say, even if he wasn't that good a drummer, he was in Nirvana, shut up. Were you in Nirvana? No. Then shut up. Just be happy that you're in a band with a guy from Nirvana, because you're probably going to be successful.
Yeah.
So again, maybe people can let us know in the comments about this, but there's a famous story about some band where one of the members quit because they were asked to open for, like, Kiss or Prince or some, like, legendary group. And, like, the lead singer's like, we don't open for other bands. And, like, the lead guitarist quit of, like, no one's too big to open for, insert band.
Yeah.
It's like, just some singers have that ego.
Yeah. God, can you imagine, like, again, a band like something like Kiss, as you say, like, just... Not sure which band, but massive bands with huge names, and you have the ego to be like, we don't open for other people. It's like, yes, you fucking do.
It's like, probably not on the podcast, I've talked about a show that I enjoy, but it's so frustrating as a show, like The Marvelous Miss Maisel, which is about a comedian called Miss Maisel. And basically, it's the people who wrote Gilmore Girls. So if you know that show, you know the exact kind of character she is, where she's always right, and she never shuts the fuck up. Which is very endearing until, like, the 4th season when she's just wrong. And, like, she's been offered, like, massive gigs. And it's like, oh, but you're opening for this huge person. It's like, I don't do openers anymore. I don't do TV spots. I want to headline my own gig. And it's like, you're poison. You've pissed off everyone in the industry. This is a great gig. Do this in the elite. It's like, and then, because she's the hero of the story, she ends up coming out on top every time. It's like, oh!
Yeah.
You shouldn't be rewarding that behaviour.
But I just want to get down to what happened to the other band member before we tail off into your Wiki.
It's got to be gutting, right? To know you could have been part of Spice Fever.
It must have been. The fact that it was just, you got a letter saying you look too old. That's the rub. You're talented. You made it past all this audition phase. You're in the band. You look a bit old.
Also, with, like, One Direction, wasn't it? Where that every single member auditioned as solo, and, like, Simon Cowell straight up said, "You're all good singers, but we can't market you individually."
Yeah,
because none of you got the charisma to, like, carry a solo career. Maybe maybe 5 of you together can form one personality.
And obviously, Harry Styles now has that charisma.
Not as an actor, he don't.
Well,
maybe as a singer, but as an actor, he's certainly fucking done.
As a singer, he is obviously phenomenally successful right now. And we have to obviously, mention that. But yeah, at the time when you look back, 15 years ago or whatever, and they're all like, help me, Simon, I don't know what I'm doing. And it's like, yeah, we're just going to cram you together because we don't know what to do with any of you.
Yeah.
So Karl, the group was then given the name Touch.
It's quite British to have, like, a cheeky name like that. Like, we literally talk about the cheeky girls whose gimmick was they've got nice arses.
It's not even, like, that side of things that I'm surprised about. It's just a bad name. It's just not memorable.
It's one syllable.
Yeah. And anyway, they moved into a house together in Maidenhead, Berkshire, which was apparently owned by Murphy, and they were subsidised by Hart Management, and each was claiming unemployment benefits.
Imagine that. Imagine going to the Dole office and seeing all 5 Spice Girls in a row.
Not so posh Spice right now, going on the Dole. So with the original lineup, they started to work demos, including dance routines, which Stevenson didn't like. She considered it a very, very young pop, and including the song We're Gonna Make It Happen, a song that was never officially released, that's why I don't recognise it, but footage of the girls performing it can be seen in a 2008 documentary. It soon became apparent that Stevenson did not have the drive and belief that the rest of the group had, so the decision was made to fire her from the group.
Do you know what that is? She wasn't poor and desperate enough to work for no money. Yeah. That's the music industry.
The decision... Oh, sorry. Vocal coach Peppy Lima was training the girls, suggested to the management one of her students named Abigail Kiss. She did a solo audition, singing a song, and 2 days later was offered a place in the band. Ultimately, she decided to decline due to feeling too young, choosing to continue with her studies and having a boyfriend. Again,
she better be happily married with 3 kids, because otherwise...
That's gotta be rough. Turning down Spice Fever.
I'm going to look it up now, so keep going, but there's an actress who did that, and it's so funny a story.
This then led to another student proposed by Peppy, 18-year-old Emma Bunton, who, of course, ended up being Baby Spice.
I was too young. The person who replaces her, Baby Spice.
But that's the thing, is it's not that the band felt that she was too... She, in herself, felt she was too young.
Yeah.
Pour one out for Abigail in the comments, everyone. After a solo audition, Bunton instantly impressed the Herberts and was invited to meet the group in July, who welcomed her with open arms after feeling an instant connection with the other girls. And yeah, like, you know, there's a big like thing of like all the history and the timeline and all that of them. But all you need to know is, Spice Fever fucking happened. They became the biggest like women-led band just of all time, and also became the most culturally relevant British export since the Beatles.
Yeah, and I remember I found that actress now. So it's an actress called Sarah Gilbert. You might recognise, she's been in a couple of things. Most notably, she was on like the last big thing she was on was the Connors TV show, the reboot of Roseanne, and then Roseanne itself when she was younger, and then a couple guest spots here and there. She was childhood friends with Leonardo DiCaprio.
Oh, right.
And when Joe and Leo was big, Joe just getting started, like, I'm talking like just off the back of like, he's going into Titanic. She advised him to take a break from acting to focus on his studies like she did, because you can always come back to acting when you're older. And can you imagine if Leonardo DiCaprio took that advice?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like, she was like, good friends. It's like, yo, Leo, you can always come back to acting like I did. And she's like not been in anything in like 4 years. Like the last thing she did was producing an episode of The Connors, which is like, you know, all right, I guess. And then before that, she's got, so actress, her next upcoming role, she hasn't got any upcoming roles.
Yeah.
And it's just sporadic.
Do you think Leonardo DiCaprio has any upcoming roles, Karl?
I think so, yeah. But it's just one of those things, isn't it, of, like, imagine having like, quit, like Leonardo DiCaprio, you should quit acting. It's just, again, the hubris of like, you know what, I've got a boyfriend, I know what's important right now, and then like the next year when they're having the argument.
No, Karl.
What? Go on, tell me.
2016 to present at the end of this article. In 2016, Mel B, Emma Bunton, and Geri Halliwell reunited for the 20th anniversary of the Spice Girls' debut album and are working on new music. Their fourth album is expected to be released in the near future.
Is that without Vic? Oh no!
Without Vic and without Mel C, and it's like no.
We gave him so much props for not doing that, and then it just turns out they did. Because honestly, the last I heard of him was rumblings for the Olympics. Do you know, like the Olympics? Right. We hosted them. I think, did they I think they might have made an appearance, but they didn't sing because one of the rumours was the Spice Girls were going to reform.
London 2012 Olympics closing ceremony and Viva Forever, the musical.
Ceremony, yes.
So they did do the closing ceremony, yeah.
Because that was one of the things, they were talking about, like, who we're going to get. Because there was rumours like, well, who are the biggest bands? Well, the Beatles. So Paul McCartney's going to turn up.
Yeah.
There's like Brian May from like Queen. Can we get Spice? So they did come back for that.
On
and I was still
August
disappointed
12th.
they didn't bring Iron Maiden back.
On August 12, 2012, the Spice Girls performed as a quintet for the last time at the London Olympics 2012 closing ceremony.
Do you know what? Not bad. That's quite fitting. That's a nice dovetail to their career.
That is when they should have gone perfect note to end on.
Yeah, the British Olympics. A celebration of Britain on the world stage in terms of our contributions to culture. And just like, here's, one of the biggest bands we've ever done. Because I think, that opening and closing ceremony were just... It's one of the few times I think probably the last time I felt patriotic about being British, of just seeing how much of culture we've helped influence.
I was about to say that maybe one of the only things I'm ever proud of is British music. Most of the things in Britain, I'm like, either, just don't want to mention... or I'm outright ashamed of for being British. And it's I
remember having a massive argument with my ex who was American, that British people, we invented heavy metal. He's like, no, you didn't, because Americans invented rock and roll. I went, yeah, but then heavy metal was British though. Rock and roll is not heavy metal. It's like, it's a offshoot of it. Mm-hmm. And you'll talk to bands like Metallica talk about being influenced by British heavy metal bands, and Iron Maiden and Black Sabbath and all that sort of thing. So, but Americans invented rock and roll, and it was this massive argument of I'm not saying you didn't invent rock and roll, but what I am saying is that British people invented heavy metal.
And as well, the Beatles kind of set up what is now known as the modern way to form a rock band kind of thing.
Yeah, so much of what it was.
Lead and rhythm guitar, bassist, vocalist, harmonies, drums. That setup is kind of not changed too much since.
Yeah, so having the very first heavy metal band, Black Sabbath, Led Zeppelin, and Deep Purple. So
I'm not sure I'd class Led Zeppelin, but yeah, I mean, either way, yeah.
Is Led Zeppelin British? I'm pretty sure they always that. Am I thinking
I don't really exactly see them as heavy metal. They might have a few heavy
Led Zeppelin,
songs.
English rock band, Jimmy Page, and then Deep Purple, English rock band, yeah. So all three. Because I just knew it was. And I remember this was an argument we had for hours, because every time I said, heavy metal's British, but it's based on rock and roll. I went, but it was invented here. Yeah. It's like saying, bread was invented in this country, so you couldn't have invented the sandwich. Mm-hmm. It's they're two distinct things. One relies on the other, yes, but it's a distinct thing that was invented in this country. Mm-hmm. It was so... I remember that was the most we'd ever argued, because I like my heavy metal, and I knew this was a thing. It's but no, it's not, because Americans invented rock and roll. I'm not saying you didn't invent rock and roll. They're two different things. That's why they've got different names. And I'm reliving it, and I'm sorry.
Anyway, I think that's a good time to take a break.
It is, yes.
And we are back from our break. And Karl, before we get onto your wiki, I just figured we'd mention a couple of housekeeping things, of course. Mm-hmm. And, for everyone listening at home, we are on podcast services. And for those watching at home, you'll again notice that I've mentioned in a previous podcast, we now have the darker, colourful background for all the people that didn't like our light white mode. Yeah,
they live in a dark world. They're a dark mode.
And I am a dark mode kid, but I didn't quite realise how much it was clearly affecting some people. So apologies for that. But yeah, if you want to go back and view the podcast now, that you can. It's safe. It's all right.
Yeah, did you see? Speaking of dark, Jimmy Carr getting roasted on Twitter, have been I shared my darkest jokes with some Americans, and then he tells a One Direction joke in 2023.
No. Yeah.
My darkest jokes, Lucas, and then he tells a non-binary joke in 20. Ooh, so edgy. Yeah. So edgy to punch down on people there, Jimmy.
You can go in that corner with Dave Chappelle and just...
It's what a legend.
Continue to definitely be relevant.
Man who has paid to fix his teeth and hairline, criticising people for getting surgery to conform to the way they look inside their own head, rather than the way they were naturally born.
Mm-hmm. But anyway, Karl.
Anyway, yeah, I just thought we mentioned. Oh, you told like a fucking One Direction joke in 2023.
I ask people over here, as always, to like and subscribe over on YouTube and rate us on podcast services.
That's right. Karl, 5.
Do you have anything to plug for us during this?
Yeah, my Twitch stream. Karl's Wood on Twitch. Mostly just stream like my usual Metal Gear Rising every Friday. But more recently, Mortal Kombat 1 came out, and this is the first time I've been on the ground floor of the release of a fighting game while having an into like the competitive scene. That guy I collaborated with, Rips, over on YouTube, who's currently struggling because you can't get Mortal Kombat content monetized. So despite it being one of like the most popular fighting games to watch online, it's almost impossible to monetize on YouTube because the fatalities and brutalities are hardwired into the game, and they get you instantly demonetized.
Understandably, to be fair.
Yeah, they are. But I don't understand why they don't just remove them from the game or give you a streamers option where they replace them with like
friendships,
sweat. Yeah, that's what they. Yeah. But either way, yes, I'll be over the next couple of weeks probably streaming some of that once I dip my toes into the online world after I feel comfortable with the game's mechanics. Because I've been also playing Baldur's Gate 3. And it's like I can't throw myself completely into a game till Baldur's Gate 3 is finished.
For sure. And I will also just plug my Twitch, twitch.tv/legendofkanto. And Tuesdays, or Tunic Tuesdays, where I play through the Zelda games, the Legend of Zelda series, mainstream games, mainline games. I'm just going through all of them one by one, currently on Oracle of Ages. And then on Thursdays, I do, I haven't quite come up with a name, maybe like Thunder Badge Thursdays is the one that we've talked about at the moment, but that's just Pokemon content, playing through Pokemon Infinite Fusion on Thursdays at the moment. And then Karl and I are doing Mass Effect Mondays at the moment.
Yes.
And we are playing through Mass Effect 1 at the moment, and my sub-goal, if I hit it, is for us to start playing through Mass Effect 2 when we're done with Mass Effect 1.
Yes, we get to meet Thane. The old panty dropper himself, Thane.
That's the thing is, I'm a big fan of a lot of the cast in Mass Effect 2, but even as a straight dude, I'm like, oh, but that Thane.
Thane. Those lips that were like specifically designed to make you want to kiss them. He comes from a planet. He's allergic to water, so you know that his lips are dry. They need that moisture.
Speaking of things that I want but can't have, Karl, what's the wiki that you've brought for us today?
Well, I've already alluded to in the potential topic, and it is a character from Mortal Kombat. Specifically, I brought a prop for this one. See if you can guess what the character is.
Sub-Zero.
Yeah, it's the one. No, so it's Johnny Cage. Because I thought, Johnny Cage, for a while in like Mortal Kombat was like the joke character, but over the modern era has become like one of the firm fan favourites just because of his characterisation and growth. And then in MK1 they completely reset the timeline, so he's just asshole Johnny Cage again.
Fuck's sake. But I always remember that I won Mortal Kombat merch in a competition because of Johnny Cage. It was just like our game, which for Americans is like our version of GameStop. Just tweeted like, what's the best Mortal Kombat character and why? And you'll win this free merch.
Yep.
And I just put like Johnny Cage. He's a man who just walks around with sunglasses all the time and has his own name tattooed on his chest.
What a legend.
What else can I say? And they were like, fair enough, you win. Yeah, Johnny Cage.
Else? Yeah, what else can you say about Johnny Cage? Well, let's find out. So we're referring to the Mortal Kombat wiki here. We've got a quote from Mr. Cage. Making movies is no walk in the park. And that's Johnny Cage to Liu Kang in Mortal Kombat 11. And he's got just so many great lines, like in the new game especially, because there's like, Johnny Cage is basically Mortal Kombat Deadpool now, where he seemingly has fourth wall awareness. Because like the entire timeline's being reset, but in like combat and like intros and stuff, he's talking to Liu Kang of like, so what happened to my wife? And Liu Kang's like, spoilers, Johnny Cage. And it's like, he just knows about the other timeline.
See, I know that that's played off as a joke, but that's terrifying because that means that he has memories of his entire previous life. And he's like, give me my family back.
It could be that, yeah, but he's Johnny Cage, so he plays everything off as a joke.
Of course it's played off as a joke, but if you actually think about the repercussions, for that joke. It's that's actually terrifying if you took it a different way.
You stole my wife and children. Also, why can't I glow green anymore? What's going on?
Where's Cassie?
Well, so we have some interest. Do you actually know Johnny Cage's real name?
Is it Nicolas Cage?
It is not. It is Jonathan Calton, better known by his stage name, Johnny Cage, is an action movie star and martial artist in the Mortal Kombat fighting games series. One of the things I love about Johnny Cage is in the original timeline, because people don't know the Mortal Kombat timeline's been rebooted 3 times. Like, he joined Mortal Kombat because everyone said, your action movies are fake, it's all special effects. And that's why he always jokes, do you like the green glow? Mm-hmm. He does that and says, it's not special effects. And I actually don't know how I do that, but it's not special effects. Like, he didn't actually know for years why he could glow green, but he just did, and he'd do it in movies. And then they kept asking, like, well, that's special effects. Like, no, I can just do that. He didn't know why he could just glow green, but he'd do it in movies, and it's obviously fake. He's like, no, it's real. I can really glow green. I'll enter this martial arts tournament and prove it.
That's a ballsy tournament to enter just to prove that you can do your own stunts. It's like the Mortal Kombat one, the one where people rip each other in half.
Well, he's that confident in his ability. We have some just biographical information about Johnny Cage here. So, real name, Jonathan Calton. And it's worth noting he's one of the few characters in the entire series who gets to skirt around the usually universal law of Mortal Kombat, which is everything that is a C is normally spelt with a K. Johnny Cage is the only exception to that rule.
Yeah, I never thought about that. And then obviously that pertains to also Cassie Cage, who is his daughter.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and Sonya Cage, his wife, in the other timeline. And then we have his weapons. He fights with a Bowie knife, pistol, and nunchaku. As his reference to, he's just the pastiche character of like martial arts actors in films. Speaking of which, he also fights using karate, jeet kune do, and shinto ryu. So karate is very popular in movies, and then jeet kune do, the chosen style of Bruce Lee.
Oh, okay, cool.
And then his portrayers. Do you know who played him?
I know who now plays an alternate skin of him.
Yeah, that is Jean-Claude Van Damme. And the muscles from Brussels.
The reason that they've brought a Jean-Claude Van Damme skin into the game is an allusion to the fact that back in the day in Mortal Kombat, the OG, not Mortal Kombat 1, we can't call it that anymore, but Mortal Kombat, they wanted Jean-Claude Van Damme to be the digital representation of Johnny Cage, but they couldn't get him.
Do you see as well that originally Ed Boon wanted every character in Mortal Kombat 1 to be a celebrity? I mean, you look at Megan Fox's voice lines as Nitara, and you're like, well, that was a good choice not to do that.
Yeah, and I think, was it Mortal Kombat they originally wanted to make a different game as well? It
was going to be a Jean-Claude Van Damme fight action game based on Bloodsport. They couldn't make that, so they turned it into a fighting game, and they lost the rights.
Him for Johnny Cage, and they couldn't get him in,
And they lost the rights to Jean-Claude Van Damme's likeness, so as a nod and a slight towards Jean-Claude Van Damme, because that's the thing, they talk about, we're so excited to have him work with us. The reason they made Johnny Cage a failed actor, who's a crap action star, who has to join to try and get some of his credibility back, is because they were doing it they were pissed off that Jean-Claude Van Damme removed the rights to his likeness. It's like, fuck it, we're going to get a generic guy who looks exactly like him and just say he's an action star who's failed and no one likes.
And if you want to know more about that Mortal Kombat, we also did a Wiki episode where we talked about that Mortal Kombat, so listen to that after this, I guess.
Yes, you can, yes. But I was going to point out, the voice actor for Johnny Cage is Andrew Bowen, and he's so good that they brought him back. He's one of the few actors they brought back for the new timeline, because the new timeline generally, with the Liu Kang, Shao Kahn, pretty much everyone else has been replaced. Because they're all new characters. They're all new versions.
I guess, but it's a bit of a dick move to all the voice actors.
Yeah. Well, we imagine though, when you see Nitara, and it's Megan Fox in the studio, she was there for half an hour. So
she didn't even do her own efforts.
No, apparently. There's someone else to do that. So Megan Fox is really in demand right now. really commanding those big. But anyway, but about Johnny Cage. So initially, Johnny Cage is a struggling Hollywood action movie star who sought to revitalize his career and reputation. He entered the Mortal Kombat tournament for the sole purpose of displaying his fighting prowess and proving himself to his skeptical film critics, as they believe Cage was nothing more than an actor who relied too much on stunts and camera work and was not really a proficient fighter. And that's the thing. It's like, but I can glow green. It's like special effects. But I can glow green.
I also kind of would have loved it if they went the other way with the new version of Johnny Cage and made it so that he
actually does fight
in a stuntman.
Well, that's it. In some of the games, he does that. Like in Mortal Kombat X, you have the stunt actor variation where you have his stunt double come in, and like he literally has like the Johnny Cage tattoo. He has it written in Sharpie on his chest in Comic Sans, and it's so dumb. Like,
oh no, I didn't see that. I've never. Yeah. Oh, I need to go back.
He matures considerably by the time of Mortal Kombat X, losing much of his earlier arrogance and airheadedness. That's when you have like the crossover between like you have younger Johnny Cage talking to adult Johnny Cage, and like adult Johnny Cage like, was I really this much of a fucking prick? And younger Johnny Cage is like,
and that's like, I bet everyone would experience that. If you went back to 20 years, like you know, you got your 20-year-old self and your 40-year-old self. I bet, like, there's not a person in the world that wouldn't be like,
Yeah.
We all grow. We all keep growing as people.
In the new timeline, I won't get into spoilers, but I'll just, like, give a brief overview of what he's like in the new timeline. He's once again a struggling actor due to his expensive lifestyle, which drove away his ex-wife.
Oh, no.
So he's like, the start of story mode, like, he's in a film, and he's like, that was a really great take, wasn't it, guys? And everyone, like the director's like, yeah. See, can we set up a lunch date? And like, no, I'm busy, Johnny. And it's like, you feel so bad for him because he's like, I did it right, guys. I'm still a great actor. I'm great at martial arts. And everyone's like, yeah, Johnny, you did great, mate. See you later.
But then the actual context is that he can go and beat up Shao Kahn.
No, he's that good. Yeah, I love him in the new game as well because he no longer has access to the shadow magic. Mm-hmm. He's just really, really fast, and like his gimmick is the hype meter, where you basically have to get people on your side in the fight, and you can alter all of his special moves to just be versions where he just plays up and mugs for the camera. So like, like the nut punch, you can cancel it. So instead of punching them, he pulls down his glasses and goes, "Hey,"
and that is like similar to Smash Bros, where Incineroar does like the pose every time after a successful hit, which you can cancel, but true Incineroar players know that you shouldn't.
But the thing is, though, once you get it to full, you activate like hype mode, and you can cancel all of his special moves into all of his other special moves. And every time you land a hit, a crowd comes out of nowhere and goes, "Go, Johnny, go, Johnny!" And there's combos out there of just him doing nut punch into nut punch into nut punch into nut punch, and like speed bagging someone's testicles as the crowd's like, "Wait!" He's like, "That's so good!" Just speed bagging that nutsack.
Oh, that's so funny.
Oh, we have appearances. So Johnny Cage is depicted as the typical American action movie star, a bare muscular build with tight pants and his trademark sunglasses, which he rarely, if ever, removes, to the point where he always has a spare set. And I love that. Of like when you hit his sunglasses, pulls out another pair. It's so good. It's such a good gimmick.
It is.
Because it'd be so. The thing is, though, it's like I like wearing sunglasses, but I don't think I could ever commit to be a guy who wears sunglasses every single day.
Indoors as well.
Yeah, if you want to be that guy, you have to wear them literally all the time.
Johnny does.
That's the thing, like when he's talking to his wife, he's still wearing them. It's like he's always in Johnny Cage mode. The guy loves it. He was physically modelled after Jean-Claude Van Damme's character in Bloodsport, and even wears a very similar outfit because it's in black shorts with a red sash and black shoes, which returns in MK1 as a bonus DLC outfit for Cage.
And didn't they get Jean-Claude Van Damme to do voice lines for that skin?
And his lines are even worse than Megan Fox's. But it kind of gets away because Johnny Cage is supposed to be a bad actor.
Yeah.
So you kind of get away with the fact like he's delivering these shit lines, but yeah.
I'm glad that it's exclusive to a skin so that you can toggle.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And then we have combat characteristics. So despite his airheaded and superficial nature, Johnny Cage is a strong and formidable warrior, showing an excellent fighting technique during battle. After long periods of training with various masters of multiple martial arts, he himself is a master of several fighting styles, such as karate and jeet kune do. He is also trained in the use of firearms and military equipment. It says, though Cage is a human being, he possesses superhuman powers. According to According to MK 2011, Johnny Cage descended from, and this is like where he gets his glow powers from, a Mediterranean cult that bred warriors for the gods. So they specifically bred warriors to sacrifice them to the gods in like battle with like deities. And it's some of these warriors had special abilities bestowed upon them by, you know, their just upbringing, which included the ability to propel themselves forward and increase the strength of their blows. So that's where his green glow comes from. He's empowering himself with like Mediterranean sex energy.
Again,
and it's so potent, his daughter can do it.
It's like, I know that people in the comments brought up what the actual distinction actually is, but if you're in a cult and there are actually gods providing you magical abilities,
it's not a cult.
Is it still a cult?
They're right. Because that's the thing, is it's like it's a cult, but they're right. So no one would call Scientology a cult if Xenu came down in a spaceship tomorrow. He says that he's one of the few combatants to utilize unorthodox tactics in battle. So he utilizes odd weaponry, such as a camera that emits flashes of light and disorientates others, a pair of explosive sunglasses from one of his movie sets. He has a tendency to implement Hollywood-inspired attacks into his fighting style, such as creating clones and stunt doubles to attack his enemies and using props as deadly weapons. He is infamous for his signature nut punch attack, which he proudly flaunts for its effectiveness despite the condemnation of those around him. It's that thing of like, oh, it's really unfair to punch your opponent in the nuts. It's like it's a fight to the death.
Yeah. Do whatever you can to survive.
I love it as well, though, because it's like, they call it the nut punch. For me, it's always the package check. I always call it the package check. And yeah, do you remember any of his, like, do you have a favourite Johnny Cage movie and you can't say the nut punch?
One of my favourite ones, just because I like to imagine just the context of which it came from is like, you know, like the kick where he slides across screen?
Yes.
But he like intros into the fight sometimes, sliding in. And I just like to imagine that he just travels around doing the kick.
Well, that's the thing, because in the newer one, when he does that, like he clearly loves it, because when you land it, he goes, whee! Like he flies, and he's so fast. Like he'll just do it and he'll go, whee! And if you hold it, he does like the Bruce Lee of like putting the kick all the way down, pulls his glasses down and goes, you like that one? And you get bonus points for doing it.
And that's the thing, it's just the insinuation from that intro that he can just continually travel just via the kick.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Just keep going.
Can you imagine you're in traffic, you're going down the motorway, you see Johnny Cage flying down the motorway like that, reading his his morning coffee.
Just leg out.
And then we have his fatalities, which he has many, many of. Do you have a favourite like Johnny Cage fatality? Because they always give him the best ones, especially in the newer games, because they know he's like the best character.
I don't remember too many of them, but one that does stand out to me is when he chops the head in half, and then he just like stamps an award in the middle of the head and just replaces the head with an award. But,
and the detail is it's the Johnny Cage award, which he gave himself. Well, I think the one that I like is Who Hired This Guy, which is a reference to there was a glitch in earlier games where if you did like his fatality was the uppercut, and he uppercuts the head off, but then the head would just fly off 3 times. So in like MK11, they gave him that, but they say it's a movie, and he like uppercuts, try to take the head off, and like it goes wrong. And he's like, cut. Okay, reset. Does it? So he does it 3 times, and he's like, "Who hired this guy?"
Mm-hmm.
It's so good. Oh, there's a fly in the bill. So you see me like doing that.
I see it just flying around. Yeah.
Is it a fly though? Or is it a bee? Oh god, it's a bee.
It's like on.
It's the bee.
It's on your shoulders, I think.
No, don't say it's on my shoulders. It's not, is it?
It was for a second.
Where'd it go? Okay, I'm not gonna be able to work with that thing in the house.
Karl's getting attacked.
I'm gonna have to go get that. So give me a sec. Okay, so we're back. You know, the crisis of the bee has been averted. Actually, it was a wasp, I think. It was had the long, thin body, not the big, fat, fuzzy body.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, I think I never see bees anymore. I just see wasps, and I don't like it. But would you like to end on some trivia about Mr. Johnny Cage?
Of course.
Okay, so just general trivia about Johnny Cage. Like, though the Mortal Kombat franchise is notorious for placing the letter C with K, Cage is a notable exception. It's like one of the only ones, and it's John Calton. Cage's real name comes from a Midway Games programmer who worked on the popular arcade game NBA Jam.
Oh, yeah.
They worked on which is still a fantastic game, and then they bring it back.
Yeah, like, I've got the kind of remix version of, like, on the 360 still, once a year maybe I'll crack out just with a mate of just, the NBA Jam On Fire edition or whatever it was. And
yeah,
it's so good. Just, I absolutely love it. And the fact that you can just be like, fuck it, I'm going to be like Bill Clinton and just do like the on fire dunk from like half court.
The thing is, they couldn't make it today because like I wouldn't want modern politicians in it. Like, that's it was kind of wholesome when you got like, Bill Clinton dunking on his wife, but I don't want to see Donald Trump in a game.
No, I don't want to see like Mitch McConnell just like freeze halfway through the match and not know where he is.
Yeah. That'd be a hell of a gimmick though, wouldn't it? I still love that one as well of like just the onion who never miss of just like Mitch McConnell. He reveals that Mitch McConnell froze because he imagined a black person being happy.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Anyway. So Brandon Lee was originally cast as Johnny Cage for the first movie, but unfortunately died before filming began. Which would have been like, a nod to his dad, like Bruce Lee. Because like, an inspiration for part of Johnny Cage's moveset.
Mm.
In the first film, after Cage defeats Scorpion, a photo signed "To My Greatest Fan" lands in the debris, a nod to his friendship. And I love that that's a thing that keeps coming back of him like signing stuff. And like in the new game, like one of his like things go between, cause it's the cameo system. Yes. Sometimes like your cameo character runs in with a sign saying "I love Johnny Cage." It's everyone loves Johnny. So he is mentioned in the dialogue between Sub-Zero and Green Lantern in Injustice 2, which they do a lot, and I like that they do it. Mm-hmm. And one of the things I love is when they do it, and you get those people in the comments going, "Did you know that's a reference to..." Yeah, we know they own both games. And then any particular game you want to hear trivia about? So we've got like all of his appearances, but we have like trivia for Deadly Alliance, Deception, Mortal Kombat 2011, Mortal Kombat X, 11, and 1.
So you mentioned Injustice. Was he not in Mortal Kombat versus DC Universe?
It seems like he may have been, but he's not listed. There's no trivia for it.
There's no trivia about it. Okay, give us some MK9 trivia then.
Okay, so MK9 trivia. There's only a little bit here. Originally, he used a variant of Melina's X-ray move before it was changed to his infamous split punch.
Oh, right, okay.
And then just like some other stuff. But then we have... Ooh.
Is the one that looks a bit juicier than MK9 then?
There is like Mortal Kombat 11. Let's go for that. Because I think that's like the last appearance where people like recognize him from. Because that's where you just get two Cages. You get Cage Rage. So Johnny Cage's fatality is called Mr. Cage's Neighborhood. A loving tribute to Sesame Street and Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, where he rips their torso off and uses it like a puppet.
Oh no!
Yeah, that's the thing. I talk about like I don't like the fatalities in Mortal Kombat anymore because the more characterization they give characters, the less I want to see them horribly murder each other. So when you have like pre-fight banter between Johnny Cage and like Sonya Blade, who are married, and like another sparring match on it, and then he rips her face off and kicks her through a car window. It's like, I don't like that.
And also just, I really don't like the idea that there are many, many people on like, the animation team and stuff that have to go to therapy after working on the games because they were forced to look at real life footage of people getting like beheaded and stuff for reference.
So I think they should go back and make it more cartoonish. Like the cameo like fatalities, for example, are all really dumb. Like Cyrax just blows up the world.
I mentioned it earlier. Bring back friendships.
And that's what they did put in. But I'd prefer it if they were just an option. Like they had they used to make Mortal Kombats where they had the option to unlock blood, an option to not have fatalities. It's like
the anti-blood code.
Well, I mentioned like Rips earlier. Like, he's a really cool dude, like a really great content creator, doing a lot of work for people who play this game. He can't make money off his content because the game is too violent to monetize.
Fatalities, yeah.
Yeah. Well, obviously, and then people complain if you don't do fatality at the end of the match. It's like, but I don't make money if this appears on screen.
Yeah.
So I think I was watching one of his videos the other day. He's like, I need to keep the lights on. It's like he has to cut away from fatalities and brutalities. It's like, we want to see him. Like, I can't. I need to pay my bills. Anyway, Johnny Cage, one of 6 announcers in Mortal Kombat 11. The others are Kronika, Shao Kahn, Raiden, and Robocop. And if you win, or if you get his, he has a nickname for every character. Like when you pick Sub-Zero, is like Grand Blueberry Ice. It's so dumb, isn't it? In an early beta of MK11, while previewing Johnny's belt buckle in the cosmetics section, Cage will look down briefly, and when the camera pans to his belt, his left hand will show an OK sign. So he'll play the game with each other finger game. It was changed to him flipping the bird instead in later versions, because that just became one of his things where he just flips everyone off all the time.
Of course. Yeah.
If Johnny is selected with his ninja mime outfits, do you know they have those little character moments where you're selecting their gear?
Oh yeah.
If he's got the ninja mime outfit on, he pretends to be in a box.
Because isn't that that's one of his successful film franchises, isn't it? In the Mortal Kombat universe, is Ninja Mime. Yeah, they say one of the only films that is done well is Ninja Mime, and I love as well. The tagline is "He's silent and deadly." It's so good. Do you know what my favourite is though? Because of the age of the newer games always have all this pre-fight banter, you find out characters actually secretly like his movies. In MK11, you find out that Fujin really likes Johnny Cage movies. And he's actually really excited to meet him. He's like, I love your movies, Johnny Cage. He's like, wow, well, God watches my movies. That's pretty awesome.
But then, speaking of which, though, so characters who've seen his movies include Cyrax, who dislikes them, specifically saying that he felt robbed after seeing Ninja Mime. Cabal expresses a similar dislike for them in Mortal Kombat 11. Tremor, on the other hand, openly enjoys Cage's films, declaring his excitement before fighting him in Mortal Kombat X. And Fujin admits to being a fan in MK11, despite finding Cage himself insufferable. I love that.
That translates to the real world a lot, doesn't it? I like your movies, but you're an awful fucking person.
You're just a prick. But that's the thing, he's such a prick, but the amount of he loves it. That's it. He owns it so much. And the fact that now he is just the fourth wall breaking character. Every single one of his lines is just a reference to a movie. So it's as a movie buff myself, watching him is I get what you're saying.
Karl, did you know that was a reference to Robocop?
Yeah. So I'm just going to look up now just Johnny Cage movies so we can just go through them to end on. Because there's not a section just saying what movies he's been in. So Johnny Cage movie list. See if we can find all the movies that he's been in. So there's a YouTube video on it, but I don't want to watch that.
I wonder how much, if we zoom in on Karl's eyes right now, we can see his browser history.
Okay, so we've got category, movies featuring Johnny Cage in the Mortal Kombat universe, and it says that they are generally made and written by Johnny Cage himself. So he writes and directs and stars in his own movies. Normally as well, they say that after he's gone into Mortal Kombat tournament, he just makes a movie out of it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So we have Ninja Mime, Ninja Mime 2, Ninja Mime 3, Ninja Mime 4, Ninja Mime 5, which is halted during production. There is Dragon Fist 2, Son of Dragon Fist, Hawaii, Sudden Violence, Aquatic Assault, Exiting the Dragon of Death, The Seven Poisons, Cage Match, The Gist of My Fist, 24 Karate Gold, Wushu, Mortal Kombat 1, 2, and 3, not to mention Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance, which is one of his endings, Mortal Kombat The Death of Johnny Cage, cancelled after his resurrection, Caged Rage, Ninja Priest, which Kano claims Cage stole his likeness for, Massive Strike, Every Dog Has Its Day, Iron Claw, Citizen Cage, which is his biopic.
That's great.
Tommy Scissor Fists, World's Most Wanted, Fly High, The Power Rangers. You Got Caged, You Got Saved, Striker, I Was Just Doing My Job, cancelled.
Oh, no.
Break Nose Mansion, or Break Nose Mountain, a spoof of Brokeback Mountain. The Exterminator, a spoof of the Terminator inspired by his experiences with Devourer. Fatal Infinity, Easy Die, a spoof of Die Hard, Ass Kick, a spoof of Kick-Ass, a TV commercial for Cage Cologne, The Flesh Pit, something he commented to be horrible, The Chosen One, The Temple of Katara Vala. So he's pretty prolific in the Mortal Kombat universe.
That's quite a lot of movies, and I can't wait for his new movie of Liu Kang Stole My Family.
But the best bit is, though, it's just, I love the idea of, like, just the gist of my fist.
That some of them are really good puns. Some of them are awful, but on purpose awful. Like yeah.
And I love the idea like just he made Citizen Cage.
That's great. That's so good.
The more they lean into him being a bad actor, the funnier it gets.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the one. Yeah, that's Jonathan Carlton.
The thing is, I want to know if Citizen Kane exists in the Mortal Kombat universe, because if not, that pun doesn't make any sense, and it's just a really bad biopic about a really bad actor.
But the thing is, though, because he has, like, the, what's it now? The fourth wall awareness, maybe he knows what Citizen Kane is and rips it off.
Yeah, but then no one else would get it. It'd be an inside joke to just himself.
Oh, yeah. It makes sense.
Which I can't put past Johnny Cage.
It's like, get wrecked. Johnny Cage. But yeah, if you enjoy, but it's two very different wikis this week. But, which one was your favourite, folks? Let us know by letting us know in the comments or by way of like social media posts at one of our links found below of which wiki won this week.
It's girl power versus boy power this week.
It's girl power versus Cage Rage. The thing is, though, the Spice Girl sounds like a movie Johnny Cage would star in.
He definitely would. He'd be in Spice World.
And Johnny Cage sounds like the name of a member of a boy band.
Oh, I don't want to know what that boy band is.
Johnny Cage. So that's the thing, like, okay then. Like, which character... to be fair, I was about to say which characters in Mortal Kombat could make, like, a boy band. It's like, well, obviously it's the ninjas.
Yeah.
Just Scorpion, Sub-Zero, Reptile, and Smoke.
All of the dance moves can be fighting moves.
Yeah, just the Lin Kuei. Let's go.
Let us know which character each of the Spice Girls would voice badly in Mortal Kombat.
Oh, to be fair, Victoria Beckham could make a pretty good Natara. I can see it.
God.
Cheers, everybody.
Yeah, thank you for watching / listening.